back, everybody. It is the Awesemo.com Nhl Dfs strategy show. We've got 9 games to discuss for this evening. Big slate, big contests around on a few sites tonight. I'm sure Josh is excited to break it down. Him and Cliffy yesterday. I'm back today, and we'll keep rotating. Those guys will get a lot of time as well, so you don't have to look at me tout bad plays every single day. It'll just be like every few days going forward. But how you doing, Josh? How did things go for you last night?
Not great. I was the one touting the bad plays yesterday, but hindsight is the ultimate 2020 on these small slates. If you told me beforehand that on this 4-game slate that Matthews and McDavid were not Matthews or McDavid were not in the winning lineup last night, I would have laughed at you. So neither of them were in the winning lineup. It was a Vancouver 2 with Horvat and Draisaitl and goalie assist Lankinen. So I didn't have any of that. So in my one lineup, so I lost money.
With it being a 4-game slate, I had some Lankinen one-offs and was heavy on the late games, but I didn't have anything too good last night. I think I got close to breaking even, probably lost 5 or 10% overall. So when I was super heavy on Edmonton 1, I thought it was going to be a good night once that first period was over. But Vancouver, Markstrom, Jesus. I mean, what happened there? He gave up 5 or 6 goals? I can't even remember what it was.
He gave up 5, then he got pulled. But that second one, he thought he was a soccer goal. He came out halfway to the blue line and just got deked out of his pants. So, I mean, they should have just taken him out earlier, but I don't think it would have mattered. Calgary didn't play great anyway.
Yeah, he's having a really good season too. So it's surprising to see against a team that's been having trouble generating some offense, at least at 5-on-5. But yeah, weird things happen. I'm sure some weird things will happen again tonight. Again, we've got 9 games to go through. We'll go for about an hour and then get out of here. NBA tip-off show coming up at 4:30 Eastern time, and then we'll have deeper dive live before lock. It is a 7:30 Eastern start, I believe, for NBA. So I think that's why we got the big contest. Josh, I'm sure you've got your single entry in the 300, and we're going to try to take down 50K, or hopefully someone watching takes down 50K. But yeah, any initial thoughts on the slate?
So there's 6 7 o'clock games, and then 8 o'clock, 1 8 o'clock, 1 9 o'clock, 1 10 o'clock. So if you have late players with an early lineup, depending on how the 7 o'clock games go, this could be an interesting slate to late swap. So this is one of those where you have to be at your phone or at the computer for the later games, because if you have a line that didn't really go off and you think you have a chalky line in one of the later games, I think maybe this is an opportunity to swap, because there aren't many games late and they're staggered, so you can make a low ownership swap pretty easily.
It's nice. I mean, so you're going to have a full period in for 6 games when the Blues game starts. That's the 8 Eastern start. And then you're going to have 2 full periods of all the 6 o'clock or the 7 o'clock Eastern starts when the Kings Coyotes game starts. I know that's one that we're going to both like a little bit, so we'll get to that one later. And then obviously Wild Ducks. I think that's going to be more one that people are using for filler stack, but there might be a chalky filler depending on what happens with ownership. But yeah, always I kind of wish we had the Toronto game late, because then I think it would be a really good late swap slate. You'd have to get off Matthews if you don't have the absolute nuts going into that last game. But very important. I agree. Very important tonight, especially to see if there's any late changes for these 6, 7 o'clock Eastern games. So be in Slack. If you want to get in Slack, awesemo.com/join. We've got an NHL weekly pass for $11.95 that gets you access to the projections ownership. Projections, the top stack tool, one that everybody loves. And actually ownership is free today, so I want to make sure I mention that. If you want to check that out, get a peek behind the paywall of one of our premium tools that everybody seems to enjoy, ownership is free today. Nightbot will be dropping that in at some point. Actually, I see Nightbot already did. Always got my back. And then, of course, you get premium Slack and the lineup builder as well. Let's start with New Jersey and Boston. We've got a 2.2 implied total for the Devils, 3.3 for the Bruins. Mackenzie Blackwood and Yaroslav Halak are your goaltenders. The big news for this game for DFS is that David Pastrnak and Jake DeBrusk are actually, I think they're swapping spots. I can't remember if DeBrusk is on line 2 or line 3. But anyways, big news is that Pasternak's at least not going to start with Bergeron and Marchand. Now, that is pretty helpful if you still want to play Bergeron and Marchand because DeBrusk is only 4,500, so it takes down the price of, really both lines. Both lines are playable. Both lines are reasonably priced. But I'm assuming you don't really like that Pastrnak split up between these guys. They're not on the top line here.
I was going back and forth about it because, like, if you want to play Bergeron and Marchand, you really want Pastrnak to be there because he's the best player on the team. But then again, Pastrnak wasn't there at the beginning of the season. I think he was recovering from COVID or had injuries. I forget which it was. But DeBrusk was up there to start the season, and their numbers, like, it's a small sample size. I think they only played three or 4 games together, but they had an almost 3 expected goals for. And then their Corsi percentage was like in the 70s, 12 high danger chances 4 per 60. So, I mean, if it's going to be split up, it's okay. I mean, I just wish DeBrusk was on power play 1. I think that's the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause about putting those guys together. I think you can also just go straight Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak.
Yeah.
Which is really expensive, but at the same time, there are a ton of cheap filler lines tonight that you can get in there. So if you go that route, you're looking like 25,000, but there's like a bunch of like lines in the 10 to 12,000 range that you can fill them with. And also the Boston second line with Pastrnak is okay. I kind of wish Craig Smith was up there with them, but like Richie and Pastrnak are both power play 1. And they're it's what, 9? It's about like 17, 18,000, which is in like no man's land. So these lines priced around 17, 18,000. If you're trying to fit in like an expensive line or going like 2 mid-range lines is might not be the popular build tonight. So you may, even if Pastrnak is extremely high owned, you're probably going to get Richie and Krejci way lower than expected. And you get, the correlation with Richie power play 1.
Yeah, I think I usually gravitate when they have done this in the past. It feels like it's been forever since Pastrnak has not been on that top line. But when he's playing and he's split up, I usually just gravitate towards his line. But you could easily do something like there's ways to get creative here. You could go Marchand with Richie and Pastrnak. I don't really love Krejci. I wouldn't play Krejci unless probably I was playing Pastrnak. Unless you just think that Boston 1's going to be back together. We could see that at the start of the game, but just more reason to be around your phone or computer 30 minutes to lock or so. I think Boston 1's fine, but I'm going to the second line as like a full stack. Richie Krejci and Pastrnak. And then I think, again, you can power play stack Boston as well, or just go back to the big 3. Probably going to be a pretty low-owned combination of players tonight just because they're not listed on the same line. They're still lethal on the power play. They're still probably going to take some shifts together at some point during the game, especially if it's close. You've got the empty net situations as well. Like it seems with the 3-point bonus, it seems like they get there a lot with the empty net goals as well. So there's a ton of ways to attack Boston tonight. Anything on the Devils side? Are you going to the Palmieri Maltsev line? I might go right back to him after a couple nights ago. No, I'm off New Jersey, really. But.
If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? I mean, ideally, like if Boston 1 was together, you'd be looking at the Devils top line if they weren't playing Boston because they're 10-5 as a line, but they're going to be going up against Bergeron. So that kind of takes it out there. I see, that second line is super cheap, but I don't really like going up against Boston, even though it is Halak and net. one off, if you want to like one off Miles Wood on that third line, that's fine. He's on power play one's 4,000. But like really, the only huge interest I have from this game in MME would be Mackenzie Blackwood. I think he's gonna, he's gonna see volume. He's cheap, and I'm just gonna keep repeating myself about this. Cheap goalies who see volume can. Like Ty Smith is 4,000 power play one. Like I don't want to pay 4,000 for Ty Smith. Severson and Subban both on power play two, but they're like the high threes. So mainly it's just on the Devil side, it's gonna be the 7,000 Mackenzie Blackwood.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, he's going to see probably some volume, big total going against him, but that's going to have it's going to make him have some low ownership. Not a big game for defensemen that I'm looking at. I mean, McAvoy, a little bit expensive for me, 5,600. And then just quick going back to the Devils side, I shouldn't say I'm off of them entirely. Like I think I had like 2% Devil stacks a couple nights ago, and it worked out just randomly because the slate was garbage, and they were cheap and they scored a handful of goals. But on a 9-game slate, if someone's not going to see Boston 1 and they're super cheap, then I'm okay going to a couple 2 thing. But yeah, certainly not a priority here with the 2.2 implied total. I think that's the lowest on the night. Anything else in that game?
I just want to mention one more thing. John Moore for Boston. He's on power play too. He's min priced on the second pair with Carlo. Probably going to see close to 20 minutes, 18 to 20 minutes.
So he even saw like 22.
Yeah, he's probably around 20 minutes. So for min price power play too, even though they don't see the eyes too much, I think you can definitely put him in there.
All right, let's go to the Rangers and the Flyers. When I entered this in, it was 2.7 implied total for the Rangers and 3 for the Flyers, but the line has shifted. This is closer to a pick 'em, so the Rangers are around 3 implied goals, as are the Flyers. Shesterkin, not confirmed. Carter Hart, also not confirmed, I don't believe, for the Flyers. Flyers haven't played in a while. They've got 7 or 8 skaters missing. And if anybody has not seen the new lines, I'll read off what we have from the past couple of days of morning skate. Couturier with Van Riemsdyk and Farabee, Hayes with Raffle and Ove Kubel, and Patrick with Connor Bunneman and David. Is it Case or is it like Andre Kasha?
I don't even know with Kasha just because.
Yeah, maybe they're related. I'm not sure. But yeah, you see how it falls off pretty quickly after that top line. So I'm seeing pretty low ownership on Philly 1. It's just like, what do you do with them outside of the fully correlated cheap top line? And then is this a spot where you're going to your Rangers?
Man, I've been on Mika Zibanejad for weeks and been getting roasted for it. And now I'm kind of off them because even though the Flyers haven't played in a couple weeks, Couturier has been back, and it wasn't a COVID issue. He had an injury, so he's been skating. He's been healthy. And he's one of the centers I don't really want to go up against. And I would imagine AV is going to send the Couturier line out against the Zibanejad line. From a Flyer side, that top line is fully correlated on power play 1. I think it's more of an MME play for me. I'd probably be around the field on their ownership. If I was doing 150 lineups, I'd probably have at least a couple lineups that I was 20 maxing, just because they're cheap, they're fully correlated, and the Rangers are awful defensively without Trouba now. So that means Brandon Smith and or Jack Johnson are both going to be in the lineup. One or both are going to be in the lineup almost every night. Jack Johnson's still injured, but Brandon Smith is in there. After Adam Fox and Keandre Miller, it's just a wasteland on the Rangers blue line. So I definitely want some of the Flyers top line. So I'm off the Rangers top line now. Of course, this is going to be a spot like they're probably going to have still inflated ownership because people are just going to be like, I'm going back here until this works out. They're cheap. I don't like that Pavel Buchnevich is off power play 1 for Strome. I mean, I'm not a big Strome guy, but from a 5-on-5 perspective, I do like the Rangers second line here, Strome, Panarin, Kakko. I mean, he's 2,800, Strome's 4,300. Panarin's relatively cheap for him at 6,200 coming back off an injury. So I think if you want to go to the Rangers, you go to the second line. They're going to see the depth of the Flyers, which after you get past Couturier here is just not great. So for me, MME only, Flyers 1, Rangers 2. You want to have some Rangers 1 for fear of missing out after, getting burned by them for weeks now. I think you can go there. And then on the defense, Keandre Miller, 3,100. He's still too cheap, especially with Trouba out. He's probably going to see a tick up in minutes. He's going to probably be over 20. He's their most reliable defenseman besides Fox.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you in terms of the forward lines. So I might be a little bit higher on Philly 1 than you are. Sounds like they're going to be one of my higher exposed lines. I don't know if they're going to be like third or fifth, or they're going to be somewhere up closer to the top because of price. And I'm surprised they got such a high total despite missing all these forwards. And so I don't know. I would think Carter Hart sees a decent amount of volume, a guy that you could correlate with as well with the cheap Philly 1. They're fully correlated. Like JVR has been playing well. I think Farabee definitely has some upside. He's got a hat trick already this season, now playing with Sean Couturier and not Scott Laughton. You would think he's got a chance to do some things. And then, if they match up against Zibanejad, I don't really love that matchup for Rangers 1. So I'm going to a bunch of Rangers 2. I hope, Panarin is supposed to play, but I think he's still technically a game time decision. So maybe that'll keep his ownership in check. And you mentioned they get to go up against the depth lines for Philadelphia, which there are 3 of them tonight because they basically just have one line team. And I think so much of that 3 implied goal total is allocated towards Couturier, Van Riemsdyk, and Farabee. So I don't know. I think this one's pretty straightforward for me on the Philadelphia side. If you wanted to go like Rangers 1, I would rather just power play stack it with Zibanejad, Kreider, and Panarin. And maybe we just get the matchup from. Maybe they want to match up against Panarin, or go full Rangers onslaught. I suppose you could do that since Philly's missing some people. But I don't really love playing full Rangers 1. So a little bit surprised at the ownership that's coming in on the top line, one of the higher owned lines of the night. So going to try to steer clear, assuming ownership stays up there on Rangers 1, and I'll be dropping down to Rangers 2. Is Miller a game time decision as well for the Rangers?
Miller's expected to play.
Okay, so him and Panarin should be in. Yeah, I mean, Adam Fox, 5,700. Nice thing about him is you can play him with either of the top 2 lines. 5,700. Probably wouldn't play too much of him as a one-off. I don't know if I'll end up grouping that out, but getting up there in price. But he has performed pretty well. And then on the Flyer side, I don't think I would play too much Gustafsson either as a one-off for 3,800. It's not like he's mid-salary. He's going to be in a lot of Philadelphia 1 stacks, so I might leave him off actually more often than not. I'm just kind of lukewarm on Gustafsson at best. Are you interested in Sanheim or Philippe Myers or any of these cheap Philadelphia defensemen?
I mean, not really, just because they're right around the same price as Keandre Miller, and he's probably going to fill that Trouba role, who's been very good for DFS. So I'd rather go there. And then I agree with you, Gustafsson. Even though he's on power play 1, he's very power play dependent.
Off and Jari are your goalies. Pitt 1 coming off a very disappointing performance. I think most people, myself included, thought it was about as good of a spot as they could have against Washington. They were at home. They got last change, obviously. You got this great line, fully correlated, and they put up an absolute dud. Now here, with about a full goal implied lower than their total from a couple nights ago, seems like a decent bounce back spot for Pitt 1. But the ownership is still there for them. So what do you like in this game?
So if you know anything about me, I'm a notorious Pittsburgh fader, just because their price is always good and their ownership is always inflated. Mm-hmm. So I like to be under the field, but I get where the ownership's coming from. They're not overly expensive. They're fully correlated on the power play. They have a decent matchup. So in MME, I definitely want some Pitt 1. In 20 max, I want some Pitt 1. For my 1 to 3 lineups, I'm going to fade just because I do. I mean, so if I don't cross off Pittsburgh, let's just say I definitely consider them in 1 to 3 tonight, just because of their price, they're correlated. The only thing that keeps me off them usually is their ownership, and that does give me concern that, they're usually higher owned than they should be. They're going to be going against the Barzal line, which is a good matchup, especially now that, Bailey's still up there and it's not Everlay. So Pittsburgh side, definitely pit one, which kind of takes me off the Islanders top line. I don't like going in up against the Crosby line. It's just one of the things I also do. I mean, there's a couple centers that I just kind of are like, no, I don't want to go up against you, and Crosby's one of them. So the Islanders line that I like is the third line tonight. Wahlstrom, Pajot, and Bolivier. They're under 10,000. They're 9,400 as a line. So they're one of those spots where if you want to go like old Boston one for the power play correlation, that's probably going to be a good landing spot for you. JGP and, Wahlstrom get that power play 2 correlation. JGP's been on a tear recently too, so he probably might have some ownership, but I doubt Wahlstrom or Bolivier will have some. So yeah, Islanders 3 for me, Pittsburgh 1. I want to like Pittsburgh too, because when I do play the Penguins, it's usually Malkin, but it's a decent matchup going against the Brock Nelson line with Michael Dal Cole and Eberle, but that's probably just a low-owned MME play for me.
Yeah, I actually do like the call on Islanders 3, just because they're really cheap. They're going to get a pretty good 5-on-5 matchup against the lesser Pittsburgh line. As long as you can avoid that top line, you're in pretty good shape going up against Pittsburgh these days. I like Pitt 1. I love them as a line. I love their numbers. They're good on the power play as well. They're just a little bit too cheap, I think, tonight, and that's why you're getting the ownership. So I don't have a problem with Pitt 1. I would like the total to be maybe a little bit higher, but yeah, good spot against the Barzal Lee line. Not stout defensively, not terrible, but I think Pitt 1 can generate really against any line in the NHL for the most part. So I'll have some Pitt 1 for sure. I don't think it's going to be where the field's at, unfortunately. I always like getting over on this line, but feels like they just kind of always are a little bit higher owned than I think they should be. So right now I'm getting to 5% Pitt 1, and it looks like I'm getting to a lot of very off the board combos with them. So I think that's what you're going to have to do, especially if you're going to throw in Letang. He's going to be popular for 4,900. He's going to be even more popular with Pitt 1 stacks. So putting 4 really chalky guys into your lineup, it's not something I love to do on a 9-game slate where there's an abundance of options. But Pitt 1 certainly a good one. Pitt 2, I'll have some. I'm limiting Pitt 2. I basically have been all season. They just haven't been good at 5-on-5. Malkin hasn't been great, but he does get power play 1 correlation with the top line. So I think I'll have a couple full power play stacks for Pitt tonight, but probably not a whole lot of Pitt 2. And not crazy about the Islanders top line or the second line. I think I'll have some of that cheap third line though. Pajot, I feel kind of like a fish though, jumping on that Pajot line. He's just been so hot recently.
It feels like you're chasing.
Yeah, really like a third line center. I know he's had his moments, but I guess Beauvillier, pretty good value if he's mid salary and skating with a reasonable line against Pitt depth.
The thing is, they're so cheap, and there's not many super expensive lines tonight. So, I don't think there's. Yeah, if you want to go Boston 1, there's not much need for a $9,400 line. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. This is like a 9-game slate where there's a lot of mid-price lines. So, unless you want to leave salary on the table while paying up for defense, I don't know if there's a need. So they might actually be a decent popular landing spot for people going, Boston power play or Toronto power play, something like that.
Yeah. All right, let's move it on to the Preds and the Blue Jackets. 2.7 implied total for the Preds, 2.9 for the Jackets. Rene's likely, and then Merzlikins for the Blue Jackets. I can't stand this game. I can't stand Columbus games. Is there something I should be liking here? I know it's a 9-game slate, but it feels like there's got to be something that we like here. Actually, let me quick go through the new lines for the Preds. It's going to be Cunnin with Forsberg and Granlund. Arvidsson drops down to the hollow line with Tolvanen. And then it's going to be Duchesne, Yarncroc, and Grimaldi goes from line 4 to what is essentially the second line. Does that do anything for you?
So I was reading Cliffy's power play article this morning, and he made a note he wrote up Forsberg, and probably before the line combos came out. I still like Forsberg tonight, but he was saying that Columbus is actually is bad defensively, and they're top 5 worst in the league at goals allowed per 60. So I want to like the Predators. I want to get behind them and I want to play them, but John Hines is, not letting me. I guess you can go to that third line, Tolvanen, Hall, and Arvidsson, but again, this is a cheap line. They're, a little over 11,000. Unless you're paying up again, or you're, getting to a Toronto 1, or, even Boston 1 without Pasta might still be expensive. I don't know if there's a super need to go there. I think, you can, and I hate that their power play is over 3 even strength lines. So I'd probably just, have a bunch of one-offs from this game, like a Forsberg one-off. He's a little bit overpriced at 7,100, probably for people's liking. So you might get him low owned. Arvidsson, 5,500. I think you can one-off him short, or go with him a mini with Yossi, something like that, or a mini with Ellis. I think, from the Nashville side, it's going to be these defensemen, Yossi and Ellis for me. They're expensive, but they're both on power play 1. They're going to get their minutes. They're going to get the peripherals. And then again, the Blue Jackets side, I want to like the line a Roslovic Atkinson line because they're all correlated on power play 1, but their numbers are just not great. And Roslovic, 5,300 seems like a reach, you're chasing. Line is okay, but you don't know if, Torts is going to bench him. You're going to get from Atkinson. It's just tough to play the Blue Jackets with Torts. You don't know what's going on with him, if he wants out or whatever, all those rumors in the articles. So he switches up lines notoriously. So if anything, I'd go to that Columbus top line. But on the Nashville side, it's going to be, this defenseman, or a mini with Forsberg or Arvidsson, something like that. And if you put a gun to my head and said, play a line, it's going to be that third line with Holla. I cannot hear you. I said, I can't hear you.
Oh, I was muted.
Yeah.
All right. That's why. Okay. So I was saying the good part about this game is that there's not much ownership going on either side. And so outside of Yossi, who I like, I always play a little bit of him, especially on bigger slates like this. It doesn't look like he's going to be outrageously owned. So I like the third line a little bit for the Preds, I should say. I ran a crunch before the show started, and I didn't really get to much of anything on the Columbus side. So just filler stacks. If I get a couple stacks of each of the Columbus top 2, or if you want to include the third line too, that's fine. I'm not really married to anything in this game, so it'll just be fillers, just as a way to get more Toronto or whoever your favorite stack is, Philadelphia, the Rangers, the Blues, whoever you like. I think if you're using these lines as ways to get more exposure to them, that's fine. But I can't find any priorities in terms of forwards in this game. Seth Jones, 5,400. Is that a guy you like?
Not really. I mean, yeah, Werenski's out and you could play him if you're playing Columbus, but he's been so bad. I mean, he's been bad defensively, so maybe offensively, yeah, if you want to one-off him, I think that's okay, but I prefer to have him locked in with Columbus 1 for me.
Yeah, I think I would as well. He just hasn't been the same guy. I got to 10% of him. It's fine. I can allocate 10% of my lineups to $5,400 Jones, and I can't find anything else in the game, but yeah, I'd probably want to play him with the Blue Jackets top line, of which I'm not playing much at all. let's go to a more fun game. Senators and the Maple Leafs. We've got a 2.4 implied total for the Sens. 4 for the Leafs. It's going to be probably Hogberg and probably Michael Hutchinson. These two teams played last night. These two teams have played like 5 games in a row. I think this is their first back-to-back, and Hogberg's played a little bit, so I'm pretty sure he's going to go for the Sens. Hutchinson maybe has 1 start this season, so I was a little unsure about him. Good news is that we're going to know before lock. So if you wanted to crunch and make your lineups with Anderson, you could always swap down for the extra 200 and upgrade your lineup elsewhere if need be. Kind of a weird series so far. We haven't seen Toronto 1 go nuclear. Joe Thornton got a couple goals called off last night. He's going to be owned again, as is Matthews, rightfully so. Matthews pretty much scores every single game. One thing that was weird about last night's game is that the Matthews line saw the most time against Nick Paul, Colin White, and Evgeny Dadonov. And if that sticks around tonight, I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't because they won, then maybe a potential spot for Ottawa 1. What do you like about this game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're talking about this game every time we're on the air.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. Matthews and Marner's price went up after meh performances. I mean, they're still going to be owned because there's a ton of cheap lines, like I keep saying. So, yeah, they're going to be owned. I don't know what else I can say about them. Like, they're going to score. Like, it's going to happen. It's just whether, Matthews has like a 4-point night with Marner involved. And if Thornton happens to, knock in a puck, luckily, I probably leave Thornton off. It's just something I like to do.
I'm right there with you.
Matthews and Marner, I mean, they're still one of the better plays of the night. They're just super expensive, but you can find a ton of cheap lines. Riley with them, I mean, he's been
got like
his price has gone up. He was 5,700 last night. Now he's 6,300. I mean, I guess if you want to play all 4 of those, you might get all 4 of them together at lower ownership.
Sure.
Just because people are probably going to want to stay away from all 4 of them together. But, like, I don't know. He hasn't been great.
He's not shooting a ton either.
Yeah. Cliffy mentioned that yesterday. His shot totals on the season compared to last have gone down, like, almost a shot per game.
Yeah.
So, like, you like at this point in the season, you know what you're getting from the Leafs. Like, I want to get behind the second line, but, like, I don't want to play a 6,100 Zach Hyman who's more expensive than Nylander, Like, they're fully correlated on the power play 1B or whatever you want to call it. But to me, if I'm not playing Matthews and Marner tonight, I definitely want to get some Senators power play in here. Kachuk, Norris with like a Dadonov, Norris, Kachuk with Stutzel, something like that. Like if you want to go full Senators 1 with Connor Brown, that's fine. I mean, I'm not huge on Connor Brown, but I think you can easily swap him with Dadonov, who's just $100 more, and get that full correlation on power play 1 with Shabbat. I mean, I don't know. I've been so back and forth on this game. It's just because it's happened so many times. It's back to back, and you're getting these goalies. I think I'm leaning more towards being under the field on the Maple Leafs and being over the field on the Senators.
I mean, it's not that difficult to get over the field on the Senators here. Like, barely any ownership for them. And I think last night I was talking about their second line, but I just got the matchups wrong. Maybe they won't do that. Maybe the second line is the better play. And I'm not going to X them out or anything, but I'm like going out of my way to try to get some of Ottawa 1. They don't grade out as a great value, but they do have, I think they can generate a 5-on-5 in any line with Kachuk. I'm okay playing. And then on the chance that they get a bunch of time against Toronto 2 and Toronto 3, which is what they saw last night and were successful, I think you're looking at a really good low-owned line. So you could go Norris, Kachuk, and Dadonov, like you said. Brown isn't terrible, 3,700, but hard to like. If I was hand building, I think I would probably get up to Dadonov for the $100 more, $100 more in power play correlation. Shabbat, just a correlation guy, I think for me in my defense backs. Dogs like Shabbat. All right, that's noted. Dogs like Shabbat. So there you go. I mean, yeah, you just got to lock him in now. 2.9% ownership. Riley, man, is he really going to be like close to double digits in ownership? I can't imagine he's going to be, but maybe he is. I mean, people just slam the Leafs, and I get it. It's Austin Matthews, but it's not like Marner is a great goal scorer at 8,300. I don't know. Like if I was doing one-offs, I would just try to slam Matthews one-offs like every game.
Marner's 600 less than Pastrnak. Like
it's nuts.
I'm gonna find the extra $600 for Pastrnak over Marner like 95 out of 100 times.
Yeah, it's just like weird pricing for everyone outside of Matthews. So they could probably price Matthews up a little bit higher, and I'd still be like, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
On the rest of this game, Muzzin priced up. The Leafs are just, like the algorithm for DK just priced them way out, like 10% higher than last night. So they're up there in price. I'll still get to my Leafs power play. I'm going to try to leave off Thornton as much as I can, as much as reasonable. I usually hedge with this kind of situation a little bit and like leave him on some, just because I feel pretty stupid if I get the stack right and Thornton has, a goal and an assist. We've seen it happen a couple times. He can tip goals in. He's got a world-class, like two very good players playing with him, and he's on the ice with them the entire game. So a little bit difficult to leave him off entirely for me if I'm making like 20% Leafs one stacks. The second line I'm not wild about. Like, they just haven't done anything to Tavares and Nylander this season, and like their 5-on-5 numbers are pretty poor. So
you mentioned it yesterday that Tavares isn't getting to the net. Is kind of having a similar season like Mika Zibanejad. He's like shooting from the outside more and not getting to those dirty areas.
Yeah, needs to get to those dirty areas. And you don't get any power play one guys on the second line for the Leafs, which knocks them down for me. And their prices still way up for how they've actually played.
Yeah.
What do we got? We've got 4 more games. Yeah, all right. So this is a good time to remind everyone that our NHL ownership projections are free for today only. Go check those out if you're wondering what it's like behind the paywall. We've got ownership projections. Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, working on those as the day goes on. So keep an eye out for those. Last update usually comes around a half an hour or an hour before the slate locks. We also got NBA ownership rankings playing NBA today. I think it's a 3-game slate. We've got a bunch of shows coming on this afternoon for NBA, as we always do. So that's going to be a little bit of a later lock. But if you want to be notified when those shows go live, you can hit the notification bell. You'll know when all of our shows will go live. A couple more things before we move it on. We're approaching 30,000 followers on Twitter, and we need your help to get there. We'll be giving away 30 free weekly passes to our followers. So if you head to @Awesemo_com and give us a follow, you've got a chance to win a free weekly pass. Pretty good deal for just a couple seconds of your time. And then, as always, I'll upload the show on podcast after the show is over. So you guys can listen. Podcast listeners, don't watch us while you're driving. Just listen to us on podcast. Stay safe and leave us a 5-star review because that helps us climb the markets or climb the charts, not the markets. But anyways, you know what I mean. Enough of me asking you to do stuff for us. Let's go to the Sabers and the Caps. 2.8 implied total for the Sabers, 3.7 for the Caps. Allmark and Vanacek are your goalies. There's some confusion or some speculation, I should say, on the Sabres lines. A couple rough outings for them. I wonder if they go back to Hall with Eichel and Reinhart. If they were to, that would be something I'd probably redo all my lineups for and just completely recrunch and throw everything out the window if that happened in this matchup. It's not a huge total for them, but 2.8 goals, plus you get a really good line. That's 5-on-5 and fully correlated on the PP, going up against a pretty weak Caps 5-on-5 team, especially with these lines. I don't know what they're doing here. But what are you liking in this game? Are you surprised to see the Caps are the highest implied, second highest implied total on the slate?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I get it with Ovechkin, just parking himself in the office. But like, if they go back to Hall, Eichel, Reinhart, and they get Kuznetsov, they're just going to run them over.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in a 50-minute sample this season, Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, Oshie has a 36% Corsi for. Like, that's just awful. And they're 2.2 expected goals against, which is a little bit worse than league average. But like, if they're only controlling the 36% Corsi for percentage, they're going to give up chances. And that top line for the Sabers is going to be fully correlated power play one. Even if they aren't together, I think you can do a Eichel, Hall, Reinhart for power play correlation. But whatever that top line is going against the Kuznetsov line, that's the line for the Sabres that I want. And that kind of takes me off Washington 1 a bit. I think I'm more heavily on Washington 2 here, Backstrom, Vrana, Wilson. It's kind of tough clicking in 6,800 Nicholas Backstrom into your lineup, but Vrana 4,400 and Wilson 5,000 make it a little bit easier. It's a you get the power play one with Vrana and Backstrom. I'm big on Vrana. I like him a lot. And you can put in Carlson with him. He's 7,100. If you want to leave off Wilson, your boy Wilson, because he's not on power play one, you can do like a 3-man of Backstrom, Vrana, Carlson. You want to add an Oshie for, savings. It's kind of weird to power play one stack the Caps without Ovechkin, but he's 8,400. If you want to get unique with that Caps power play one stack, you can. But for me, even strength lines, I want Washington 2, and I want whoever's going against – I want Buffalo 1, whoever's going against the Kuznetsov line.
Yeah, I mean, as the lines are formed right now, if it's going to be Cousins – wait, I'm seeing new lines, actually. This must have just gotten updated. I'm seeing Eichel with Olsen and Reinhart, and then Stahl, Hall, and Cousins on the second line. Have you seen that anywhere, or is that just a guess?
I'm not sure, but if that is the case, Hall, Eichel, and Olsen are all power play one as well. I mean,
yeah. So
where Cousins or Dylan Cousins, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen those anywhere.
I wouldn't be surprised. Buffalo does some weird stuff with their lines. So
yeah, what I might do since I'm only playing on DK tonight is just be ready for this situation and just whatever happens with the Sabres line, just recrunch my lineups like that. I think I'll have enough time in 20 minutes or so to get everything entered. But if it's some sort of combination of Eichel, Reinhart, Hall, Olofsson on the top line, like if they stack up one of these lines, I'm good with playing a bunch of them. I don't think the Caps are very good defensively.
They're one of the worst 5 teams they've got to be. Like, they rely on the power play.
Well, that Kuznetsov Ovi line that you mentioned, that's going to be a train wreck. So, yeah, I'm in on Buffalo. I just don't know what format it's going to be depending on what their lines do. But if you want to do a 2-man, Hall and Stahl, I think that's fine as well if those two end up being together at 5-on-5. And then you mentioned the Washington Sioux stack. I prefer them as a full line. And then, as always with the Caps, they got this high implied total. They seem like they get there more often than not in like these spots that actually aren't that amazing, but everybody plays them. You could just go like 3 or 4-man forward power play stack, throw in Carlson, and I have some interest in doing that because I hate choosing between these Capitals lines. Anything else in this game?
If you're playing Buffalo 1, Dahlin 4,800. I mean, you can even one off him if you have like 5,000 left, but I prefer to correlate him on the power play.
People are asking us to do the show at 5 because 3 Eastern is too early. Well, when DraftKings is offering up $200K to first every night for NHL, then we'll have 3 hours of NHL content every night.
Until NBA's on their All-Star break, we're at 3 o'clock.
I don't know for sure, but I think we're going to do 2 shows during that week for NHL. So you guys will not be cheated. I mean, it's free anyway, so stop complaining or whatever. But and if you want the good stuff, just come to Slack, awesemo.com/join, or DM me. I can help you pick out a membership that's right for you. We've got stuff that starts at $3.95 per week. Pretty good deal.
Don't roast me about my pronunciations and my bad plays.
Yeah, that's what we do all night.
Roast me.
Yeah. Let's go to the Sharks and the Blues. 2.5 implied total for the Sharks, 3.5 for the Blues. Marty Party Jones in net. Jordan Binnington for the Blues. Blues onslaught here. It's weird that the Blues aren't playing the Yotes for the first time in like 6 weeks. But What do you see here that you like?
So the Blues had optional this morning, but they did confirm that Parayko's out. And then the Sharks confirmed that Carlson's out. And you have Martin Jones in net. So this game could be – you might want to buckle up for this game. So on the Blues – I'll start with the Blues side. So Ryan O'Reilly, David Perron, Barbashev. I mean, I kind of like that line, but I don't know. The matchup is kind of weird. Like they're going to be up against the Couture line, Kane and LeBanc, who are fully correlated power play one. They have pretty decent defensive numbers. Not that it makes a huge difference once you get into the zone. The Sharks are pretty bad on the blue line, and you know my feelings about Martin Jones. He's not great. So that kind of negates the Sharks one. I don't like going against O'Reilly and Perron. That combo has sludge fest written all over it, so they kind of slow it down. Like if I'm going to use O'Reilly Perron, it's going to be in power play stacks. For me, I like this St. Louis second line going against the San Jose second line. I think this is going to be a pretty good matchup for both these teams, both these lines. Hertl, Timo Meier, and Rudolph Balkers. I don't know. There you go. $4. Roast me. And then as long as Schwartz is still out, it's going to be Mike Hoffman, Braden Shen, Jordan Kyrou. I think that's my favorite line in this game. Shen and Kyrou are on power play 2, if you want to call it that. They kind of split the time. Hoffman's on power play 1. So if you're using that line, I think you can either use – so with Parayko out, it's going to bump up Vinny Dunn's minutes, and he's going to actually see minutes now, hopefully, you would think. And he is on power play 2. I think if you need the cheaper defenseman there, you can go Vinny Dunn. If you want to go Torrey Krug, that's fine. I prefer to go Dunn. I'm not a big Krug guy. Or if you want to, if you're using like, O'Reilly and Perron and you want to throw in a Hoffman, you can go with Justin Falk, who's on that top power play unit. Oscar Sundqvist, also on power play 1, 2,700. You can get a little creative there if you want, some savings on their power play stacks. And then Shark side, again, San Jose 2 is my favorite spot. I'm going to be underweight. As much as I love using the Sharks here, I'm going to be underweight on them. I'm going to be underweight on the Sharks as a whole tonight, except for, maybe Brent Burns. He's kind of been invisible, but like he's going to – I wouldn't be surprised if Carlson out he sees close to 30 minutes tonight. And then, if you want to power play stack the Sharks, Kane, Couture, LeBanc, Hertl with Burns, you can. I mean, I dabble in that in MME a little bit, but again, under the field on the Sharks – under the field on St. Louis 1, over the field St. Louis 2, and I definitely have some blue power play stacks.
Yeah, I'm going to be over on St. Louis 2. I can assure you that if we're anywhere close on our ownership projections. And then St. Louis 1, they're just like O'Reilly and Perron together they just don't generate that much offense. So when they're chalky, I try to go elsewhere. Again, I feel like I've said this about a number of teams today, but the onslaught is definitely in play with no Carlson. He's not great, but
he's the best defensive defenseman.
Yeah, and so like they've got like Burns out there playing like 30 minutes a night, and Super Mario as well. But outside of that, they're in rough shape. Burns, though, I think argument for number 1 defenseman on the night. He's up there with Yossi for me. I actually have the exact same amount of those two right now. But I'm going to get my fair share of Burns. And then at first I was going to be off of the Sharks almost entirely. But then I remembered, like, man, Blues have kind of been taking a lot of penalties so far this season. And so I looked it up. They've taken 74 in 16 games, which on a like per game basis, they're like right up close to the top. So if you wanted to go Sharks 1, I can't really fault anyone for that. Their ownership actually did come down in our most recent ownership run. I think some more went to like Philly 1, some other cheap stacks like that. But I still think it is an okay spot for the Sharks power play stack. Assuming that you can get Burns in there as well for 6,900. Justin Falk is 5,100. I don't know. I mean, he's fairly aggressive with his shots, but he kind of stinks.
He's been shooting like I want to say he's the top 3, like for me, top 3 players I hate the most in DFS. Like,
wow, You got Marty Jones on the other side, so
yeah,
there's number one.
He's in there too. But like Falk, like when he was with Carolina, he ran that power play instead of Dougie, and it just drove me nuts because he did nothing. And now he comes over to the Blues and he was like 2,900, and he's putting up 35 fantasy points. It just drives me nuts. Now he's overpriced. You got to play him if you're playing, Blues power play here.
Pretty much. He doesn't even grade out as very good value. So that's going to be one of those correlation defensemen. And then Krug, like basically the only reason you play Krug is for the power play. And now he's on this second unit. Maybe it'll be somewhat split. But yeah, I don't think I'd play Krug unless I'm playing St. Louis 2, which is the line I like. So I'm in a bit of a conundrum.
But then you get $1,900 cheaper with Vinny Dunn. Like if you can guarantee me Vinny Dunn's getting 18 to 20 minutes tonight, I'm playing Vinny Dunn over Torrey Krug most of the time. Yeah. The biggest thing with Dunn is his time on ice. But with Parayko out, I would imagine he's going to see a nice bump.
You would think so, but we've tried to solve the Dunn thing for a while, and it's like I just have no grasp on what they're going to do with him from game to game. His minutes just jump around so much. All right, let's go to the Kings and the Yotes. A couple more remaining here. 2.5 implied total for LA, 3 for Arizona. Probably going to be quick. And then Darcy Kemper is confirmed for the Yotes. The Yotes are not playing the Blues. Finally get a new matchup. What do you like in this game? I actually know what you like, but tell the audience what you like in this game.
So I really like Arizona top line in this game. I feel like they're overpriced in this matchup. And so I think their ownership is going to be down. Keller, Schmaltz, and Garland. Like, Connor Garland's been great, but he's not a household name. So 6,900 for Connor Garland is nice, but like people don't really know who he is. But the thing is, like, that makes this matchup so good is they're going to avoid Kopitar and they're going to get the Kings depth, which is absolutely terrible. So I wish Keller was on the top power play unit, but you get the Schmaltz, Garland power play one there. I think you can put him in with Chychrun easily. Chychrun you can one off. I love Chychrun. Yeah, man, I want to be over the field on Arizona 1. If you want to, put in Dvorak for a little more power play, I think you can. But the problem is with Arizona at home, you're probably going to see Dvorak go up against the Kopitar line. So I don't really like that line anyway. Dvorak's with Lawson Krause and Tyler Pitlick. So it's really Arizona 1 for me. The second line doesn't really do much for me either. Brassard, Hayton, and Kessel. If Kessel's on power play 1, yeah, maybe. But Brassard's on power play 1. If you need a cheap, person for power play 1, you can put him in. But it's Arizona 1 for me. And then I do like LA 1. Their prices are kind of creeping up. I don't really want to play, 5,300 Iafallo or 5,300 Dustin Brown, but they are fairly correlated. LA 1 for me, I'd probably be around the field just because I really like Darcy Kemper tonight. I don't think I'm alone. He's probably going to be one of the more popular goalies tonight. So for me, I'm definitely going to be way over on Arizona 1 because I think it's from an ownership play. Just they seem overpriced, but it's a really good matchup for them.
Yeah. I mean, projection systems are going to take into account like past years as they should. And so Garland's not a $6,900 player. Schultz is not a 60 or 6K player. Keller, arguably a 5K player. And so at first I was like, there's no way they're going to be 1-2%, but I think they are. Cause if you're playing Arizona 1 and you put those 3 guys in, you're not playing Toronto, at least not the top line. You're not playing Ovi on the Caps. You're probably not playing New Buffalo 1 if there is one. You're going to miss out on Pitt 1 as well. So like, there's just like people just aren't going to play this Arizona team with
especially if you put in Chychrun too. If you put in Chychrun, you're up around 24,000. So it's like you're kind of if you're making like the mid-range lineups, like you're probably gonna have to put something in like 14 to 16,000 as a secondary line, and I don't know if people want to go there because you have the Pits around the same price. Toronto's a little bit more expensive, but like. They're 17. Arizona won 17-9 as a line. I think people are just going to avoid that just because there's better lines on quote unquote paper, that are right around the same price.
Yeah, 100%. So at the very least, I'm going to be overweight. I'd like to get into double digits of this line and be like 4 or 5 times the field. I would have no problem with that. I think this is a play where if you're over on it, like, and you play the slate 100 times, you're going to come out way ahead on this Arizona. Like, I think they could legitimately break the slate, like, 2 times out of 10. And so if you get one of those 2 times here, you're going to be making it or have a good chance to make $50K or something if you play them in the $300 tournament. So I'll be looking to do stuff like that. Certainly going to be overweight on them in the $10 tournament for DK tonight. And then I like to call on Arizona 1. Can't get them out of my head. I like to call on Kings 1 as well, just because they're not going to face off against the Schmaltz, Keller, Garland line. Secondary lines for the Yotes, Dvorak is 5,800, but
that line, their numbers are bad, and if they're going to match them up against Kopitar, just they have a 3.32 expected goal against. Granted, it's a small sample size, but they're also giving up 12 high danger scoring chances against per 60. Like, yeah, Iafallo and Dustin Brown are who they are, but like Kopitar can do some damage against those guys. Like,
I feel like Kings 1 every time I watch them. It's usually against the Wild, so maybe that's why. I feel like they always look like really scary when I'm like anti-sweating them. So
they're always on the ice.
Yeah, that's probably it. Like, they just rack up shots, and Kopitar looks good from time to time. So Arizona 1 night. I think some fillers on Arizona 2 and 3 for me as well. Last game of the night, the Wild and the Ducks. 2.5 implied total for the Wild, 2.9 for the Ducks. So the Wild have already had 1 game back from their long layoff. Tonight they're getting back Spurgeon and Ian Cole. So now they've got 4 defensemen that are NHL players, or at least ready for the NHL. So getting healthier. They're rolling with some new lines, though. I'm seeing – actually. I think these are wrong on my screen. Do you have the Minnesota lines?
I have Bustad with Kaprizov, and then Zuccarello with Eriksson, Ek, and Fiala, and Greenway with Johansson and Foligno.
Yes. Okay. So we've got the old ones on my screen right now on the lineup builder, but those get updated as FC gets updated. What does that do for you for the Wild? Not a bad total, not a ton of ownership going to any one Minnesota Wild skater, or are you on the Duck side here?
This is just weird. Like, this is like the lone late game, and I don't think there's going to be much ownership on these skaters. I think this is going to be like a game I think Gibson's going to be popular, because Gibson's always popular because what's his price? He's 7,500. And he's home. So yeah, Gibson's going to be popular. I don't know. Like, I wish there was a better game late. Like you said, like if Toronto was the lone 10 o'clock, that would change the slate completely. But like the Ducks, I'll just start on the Duck side. Like Henrique, Getzlaf, Troy Terry, they're 10-7 as a full line. Right. And I want to get behind them, but like the Ducks keep doing these things they don't give these guys the ice time. It's just maybe for 10-7, like, yeah, you can get away with 15 minutes on the ice, but I don't really want to put them into my lineup. I'm going to be underweight on the Ducks for sure. One thing that does give me a little bit of hope is they don't have that Eriksson, Ek, Greenway, Foligno line together, which has been easily their best defensive line for the past few seasons. Granted, Minnesota Wild are not at home, so they avoid, Getzlaf would avoid them. But at the same time, like, whoever Getzlaf is going against, like, even if it's Parisi and Kaprizov, like, I kind of like that line, even though Bustad is 4,700 not on power play 1. Like, this is a spot where they kind of feel overpriced, considering, the Wild don't have many great centers. And, like, if I'm going to play an overpriced line, it's going to be Arizona 1. So, like, if I'm going to piece together anything from this game, it's going to be, like, a couple one-offs, like a Kaprizov one-off, or you want to put them in with Suter or Dumba. Like, not Suter. I mean, I prefer to put them in with Dumba for the power play 1 correlation. Like, you could do, like, a Parisi, Kaprizov, Dumba, or, like, a Fiala, Dumba, something like that. But, like, as a full lines, I'm going to be underweight on both sides.
Yeah, I can't really pick out a line that I'm looking forward to playing in this game. the thing with the Ducks too is like you don't even know if guys are going to be scratched late. We've seen that, like Heinen's been scratched a couple times.
Yeah,
like they're just, who knows who's actually going to play outside of Getzlaf or Kell, and Henrique's been scratched once this year. Like you just never really know what's going on with this team. It's not a great spot, really, against the Wild. So I don't know. I mean, not a whole lot I'm looking at. If I had to choose one line from this game, I don't know what line they're considered on Fantasy Cruncher or on your guys' favorite lineup sites, but I think Parise and Kaprizov with Bukestad if you wanted to, but mainly just those two guys, just Parise and Kaprizov. If you want to do a two-man stack there, like if you could go double center, I'm thinking of like Arizona full power play stack with Dvorak and Schmaltz, and then you've got, an extra utility spot, something like that. I think you could get away with, but I'm hoping this one is just an ugly game. Who knows? Maybe it'll be 7-6. I mean, you never really know this sport.
The ownership on this game's got to be, Gibson, right? So, so like the only late swap really is like you need to get off like Chalk Gibson. You go to Kakinen if he's confirmed. He hasn't been confirmed yet, right? So and he's 300 more expensive than Gibson on the road. So like, just kind of just a weird late game. Like I'm just fading and hoping it doesn't go off.
Yeah, so much for the late night hammer in this game.
I mean, it could be Gibson. Gibson could be the late night hammer. He probably is going to be at least 15%. Yeah.
All right, I think that's going to wrap it up. Let me make sure. Chat. Who's the goalie tonight? I don't know. People are talking about Blackwood and Slack. Do you have a favorite goalie?
I mean, if you're going to pay up, I like Kemper. If you're going to pay down that mid-range, I like Gibson. And cheap, I like Blackwood. But there's a whole bunch that you can play. I like Kakinen too. Like the Ducks are bad. So
yeah, I like Kemper. Hutchinson, if he goes, I think he's fine for that price.
Like everyone has their predetermined notions about him, so he's over 8,000 too. So he's going to be low owned for sure.
Yeah, but volume is king. So Carter Hart, I think, is fine as well. If you're going with like Rangers 2, we both like that line. Go with Shesterkin, or is Georgiev even available tonight? I haven't heard much.
I think so. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was playing Rangers goalie, just be from a shot volume perspective. No confidence at all, though.
Agreed. All right. Check out the NHL ownership projections today. If you guys have not already, those are going to get updated a couple more times up to lock. Free for everyone. Also NBA ownership rankings. And then I forgot to mention the MMA rankings as well. If you're playing some MMA this weekend, get a peek at Alex's rankings for today only. Hit us with a like and subscribe to the channel on your way out. Tomorrow, I believe it's myself and Cliffy. And then Saturday, it's going to be Josh and Cliffy, I think. So have fun. Until then, good luck.